So, we finally reached the point where we are done with the original cast, at least for the most part. But still, and what better way to rein in the new era than by going back to the place where it all began. Yeah, after trading locations for 3 seasons, it feels like whiplash to go back to the place where we all began this journey in season 1. Oh, but don't you worry, we're not just repeating the same old stuff from season 1. Oh no, we have to get a lot dumber. I'll go on record saying that I still got enjoyment out of the next 3 seasons to come, but they are significantly worse than the 3 seasons that came before. It is, sadly, a significant downgrade in quality. Are there still bright spots? Oh, certainly. I think there's at least one thing of merit in each of the next 3 seasons. But that's only saying so much. Let's just get into it, shall we? So Total Drama Revenge of the Island, as the name implies, sees us return to the roots of the series. Camp Wawanakwa, now with added toxic waste. You think I'm kidding, but no, I wish I were. Yep, since we last saw Camp Wawanakwa in season 1, the place has been overwrought with toxic waste, which has done, well, let's just say considerable damage to the place. And rather than show any sort of common sense and move, Chris decides to use this to his advantage to torture the cast. And sadly, this is only the beginning of Chris's rise to total psychopathy. As I mentioned earlier in the retrospective, the original cast is no longer a part of the show. Sort of. See, while the original cast is not competing in this season, many of them get glorified cameos scattered throughout the season. Whether it's to help out in a challenge or just to get fucked with by Chris, many of them do show up throughout the season. And I do not like this. And really, it just points to a bigger problem that the show has that sadly it cannot overcome. See, reality show competitions thrive in having a new cast every season. After all, the contestants really aren't the star. The star is the challenges they're put through and the host. But here, it's different. Live-action sitcoms or dramas or animated cartoons, the strength lies in its cast, its characters. Generally, they don't rotate out like a game show does, so you can feasibly expect to see the same characters in every single episode. But here you have an animated cartoon trying to lampoon and satirize those reality shows. And yet for each of the first 3 seasons, the same pool of characters has been used in each of them. So now you have these characters that the audience has had 3 seasons worth of episodes to get to know, to grow close to. And now, in its 4th season, they change them out for new characters. Honestly, they were damned either way. This was an unwinnable situation for them. So what it came down to was the hope that this new cast of characters could be just as entertaining, interesting, and compelling as the first generation of contestants. It did not work, but I will get to that in a bit. Oh, I should also mention that each of the next 3 seasons are significantly shorter than the first 3 seasons. 13 episodes each, as opposed to 26. And I feel like that was a mistake. See, the bigger episode orders allowed us more time with the characters. So the characters that the show wanted us to get to know better, the show wanted us to like, we had significantly more time with them. But in seasons 4, 5, and 6, that's not the case. Now, for All Stars, it's not a huge deal because the roster consists of characters we've already had a lot of time devoted to. And also that season is total shit. But for seasons 4 and season 6, seasons that are introducing completely new casts to us, the reduced episode order ends up meaning we have less time to spend with these new characters, less time to flesh them out, less time to make them interesting. Because, yeah, we definitely could have used more time with this cast. Speaking of the roster, let's get to them. Let's start with Stacy, the one in the bow and pink sweater thing. Her one character trait is that she won't shut up about useless facts that nobody cares about. So she's like World Tour Harold, except even more annoying. I think I mentioned this earlier in the retrospective, but the show got really lazy in its first eliminations. Like, they made it super blatantly obvious who was going to go home first, just by how annoying their character traits were. To be fair, it didn't start with Revenge of the Island. One could say it started with action, you know, Bridget and Jeff constantly making out. But yeah, it was annoying back then, and it gets even more annoying in the future seasons. She's not awful, just wholly unmemorable. Next comes Dakota, and I have no problem admitting that Dakota pleasantly surprised me. So she's introduced as this fame-hungry girl who's looking to not only win the million, but also turn her stay on the competition into her own spin-off series, sort of like what Heather wanted to do. But naturally, as the series goes on, that persona is challenged. Despite the fact that she was voted off second, she actually comes back into the show and has a prominent role going forward. First as an intern for Chris, and second as a competitor again, before she turns into this psychopathic, toxic hellbeast. Okay, is this dumber than Gollum Ezekiel? Because this is now 2 seasons in a row where this show's reckless bullshit has radically fucked up the lives of 2 innocent teenagers. And yes, that's on top of the ways they radically fucked up everyone else's lives. Hashtag put Chris McClane in prison, am I right? I think what surprised me the most about her character is the friendship that she developed with Sam. Like, you look at a character like Dakota, and you look at a character like Sam, a gamer nerd. Someone like her would typically never give him the time of day, but he persisted. But not in a creepy way, no, not like Sierra did with Cody. It was more like he was friendly with her because he had already resigned himself to the idea that he didn't have a chance with her. But because he saw past her exterior, looked inside her soul, talked to her like a normal fucking human being, she, I guess, fell for him. This trope is probably cliche as all hell, but I found it endearing enough. It actually reminded me a lot of Courtney and Duncan's original dynamic. 2 polarizing personalities somehow finding a connection with each other. Obviously, it's not going to work out in the long haul, but in the short term, it's nice. I'd hardly call Sam and Dakota my favorite ship of the series, but it was a pleasant surprise, and I'm glad I got to rediscover it. Then there's B, who is the epitome of wasted potential. He's a man of action, with few words to boot. So he's basically the Ferb of this season, except wasted. The fact that he's eliminated 3rd is such bullshit. Think of how cool it would have been for him to go even farther. You have this character who clearly knows his shit, who knows how to compete in challenges and win, doesn't say a damn word, but makes it very far in the competition, like the top 5 or whatever. That would have been so damn cool to see. But alas, we don't get that. The only significant thing that we do get from him is the fact that his full name is Beverly, which doesn't really amount to anything outside of the challenge where we find out this information. Man, Beverly deserved so much better. And you know what? So did Dawn, because she's the next one who gets voted off. Dawn is a wannabe fortune teller who claims that she can read people's auras and predict the future and whatever. Unfortunately, Dawn is another character that just did not bring much to the table in terms of personality, but in terms of the game itself, she got royally fucked over. Long story short, in her elimination episode, her teammate Scott engages in some sabotage. Yeah, I'll get to him in a bit. And basically makes it so his team loses the challenge. Dawn vows to get revenge on him and expose him, only for Scott to overhear her and collude the team into voting her out.
You forgot this on the boat. Whoops! You're a thief?
Not even a fake Chris McClane immunity statue can save her ass here. Yes, I'll explain that also later. It's not that her fortune teller-esque personality is anything new, but I'm kind of a sucker for something like that, and I really wanted to see more of it play out. Then there's Sam, who's addicted to video games. Thankfully, that's not his entire personality, but it is a significant chunk of his personality. Hell, he's full-on addicted and obsessed with video games to the point where he brings what looks like a Game Boy Advance to the island and has it confiscated as contraband. And then in one of the challenges, the one where Lindsay makes her guest appearance, there's this whole Donkey Kong parody that Sam takes part in. And what's depressing is, aside from his relationship with Dakota, that's his standout moment. And it comes at about the halfway point of the season. I do appreciate the fact that he's not immediately ostracized by everyone just for being a gamer dude. Although, don't get me wrong, I don't think they were going for any sort of progressive message or anything. I think it was just the fact that none of these characters are really truly fleshed out. Gee, maybe you shouldn't have cut the episode order to 13.
Semper Fi. Sit down, fool.
Next we have Brick, the military cadet who practices chivalry.
Seems Brick's a gentleman. He hardly tried. And chivalry is a weakness I can take advantage of.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Another perfectly fine character that's not particularly memorable. I thought he was a fairly decent change of pace from the typical Total Drama contestant. Although I feel like between him, Joe, and Lightning, there were just a couple too many characters that fell into the athletic stereotype, at least relative to the cast's size. Besides being used by Joe, the only other notable thing about Brick is the fact that apparently he wet himself on the first and last day of school. Which is worthless information because this show doesn't contain school of any kind. At least his elimination is somewhat honorable, which is a lot more than I can say for Anne-Marie. She's your typical Jersey Shore reject person. person, has the accent and everything. I'm sure people who are fans of that kind of show will find her somewhat endearing, but I am not, so I don't. You know, it's funny, between her and Dakota, I used to think that Dakota would be the more annoying character. And I was wrong. The most important contribution Anne-Marie had to this season was getting into makeout sessions with Mike. Or should I say Vito. God damn it, the show. Which only served to derail any chance for character development. Oh, and then there was her actual elimination, which wasn't an elimination. No, see, she quit. So in that episode, they're in a mine where a couple things happen. A, she runs into Ezekiel. Yeah, I told you, he makes cameos in this season and next season. The show really liked Ezekiel Gollum. But then she runs into this diamond thing, which she assumes is going to make her rich. Yeah, turns out it's fake.
I don't need this 2-bit show anymore. Look at this thing. I'm rich!
Not unless cubic zirconia has suddenly become priceless.
What?
Yeah, Anne-Marie may be an unmemorable character, but her elimination sure as shit will stay with me for the rest of my life. Also, this is the point where Chris unceremoniously reinstates Dakota as a contestant. And now we finally arrived at Mike, who, for better or worse, has probably the most character devoted to him. Well, it seems like there is a lot to Mike's character, and credit where credit is due, you could certainly unpeel a lot of layers from his character, but really, it just comes down to this one spoken line.
I have multiple personalities.
I don't even know how to respond to this.
So, Mike suffers from a disorder known as dissociative identity disorder. According to WebMD.com, dissociative identity disorder is a severe form of dissociation, a mental process which produces a lack of connection in a person's thoughts, memories, feelings, actions, or sense of identity. It's almost like there's more than one of you sharing the same body, in a sense. Now, I'm no doctor or specialist, so I am absolutely not qualified to say whether the portrayal of dissociative identity disorder, as shown in this season, is offensive or anything like that. I'm also not qualified to say whether it's actually funny or compelling, but I'm going to do that anyway because I'm a shitposter. And the answer is yes and no. Okay, let's actually start with Mike's different personalities. First, there's Chester, the old man stereotype, Svetlana, the Russian gymnast, Manitoba, the weak Indiana Jones parent, and Vito, the Italian stereotype, and the one that constantly makes out with Anne-Marie, which pisses off Zoe. Oh, there's also Mal, but I'll talk about him when I get to All-Stars. So, the crux of the character development with Mike is him struggling over whether or not he should tell Zoe that he has dissociative identity disorder. In his own words, he was afraid that she would think he was a freak. When in reality, Mike, you should have been worried that she would think you were a player. Yeah, unfortunately, I have to say on rewatch, the will-they-won't-be thing between Mike and Zoe was a lot more annoying than I remember. Ignoring the multiple personality thing for just a moment, it was annoying because they made it clear from the start that these two were going to get together, and that these two clearly had a thing for one another. So despite the fact that this season was half the length of the previous seasons, it actually felt like this dragged on longer than past relationships, and I think the reason is because of how obvious they made it that these two were going to be together. With Duncan and Courtney, it really wasn't obvious, or at least it wasn't to me, which kind of made their growing relationship with each other surprisingly endearing and charming. That's not to say that Zoe and Mike's relationship isn't. I said that I really do like these two together, and I do, but it's one of those situations where the solution to their problem is so glaringly obvious that you're mind-fucked as to why they can't figure it out for themselves. Again, I don't necessarily think Mike's portrayal of dissociative identity disorder is offensive, but it's definitely not funny, or at least not as funny as I thought it was when this first came out in 2011. When Mike is allowed to be himself around Zoe, he and Zoe have great chemistry with each other. But when the different personalities get involved and interfere with this relationship, I don't know, it just gets very frustrating. What's even worse is, in the episode where it finally all comes out, Mike gets axed!
Thanks for telling me to victory.
Oh, don't get too smug, Scott. You're coming up real soon. So yeah, I'd say Mike is probably one of, if not the best characters in Total Drama Revenge of the Island. However, that's by virtue of the rest of the cast overall being very underwhelming. Also, the way that Mike's problem is solved in the end kind of bugs me a little bit. Like, I know it's a cartoon and it's not supposed to be an accurate portrayal of dissociative identity disorder, but something about how they handle it in this scene kind of bugs me a little bit. Like, the way it's solved is Mike kicks the asses of all of his alternate personalities so he can regain control of his mind completely. So why was that not an option at any point in the past? Especially if they really did go down as easily as the episode wanted us to believe they did. Like I said, it's not offensive, it's just dumb.
From now on, this brain is under new management.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Also, this might just be me, but I have a real problem with this line.
I love oddballs, and you're officially the coolest one ever. Multiples just means there's more Mike to love.
Once again, I'm pretty certain that the portrayal of dissociative identity disorder is not intentionally offensive, but I'm pretty sure this isn't how it's supposed to work. But you know what? I'm done talking about it. Let's move on. Next up is Jo, the female jock of the group. She's basically a watered-down version of Eva. But to be perfectly honest, I did not like Eva, and Jo is a massive improvement over. For one, Jo didn't have anger issues she had to quell, which really put me off of Eva. Also, she's a lot smarter than Eva. But she does keep Eva's disregard for the well-beings of her teammates around her. Like when she called Cameron expendable. Nice.
Fuck you.
She makes herself known very quickly and establishes herself as a legitimate threat. Although besides that, there isn't really a ton here that she does, which confuses me. Actually, the most memorable thing about her tenure on this season is the fact that Lightning kept thinking she was a guy. No, really.
You're an idiot. You couldn't even tell I was a girl.
You're what?
Maybe it's the fact that they kept fucking hammering this joke the entire season that makes it unfunny. Like if they had pulled it back significantly, made it more subtle, and then did this joke here where Lightning sends him off like, I don't know, saying, "Ha! That's one less guy standing in my way for the money." Wait, you think I'm a dude? Wow, you're stupid. Look, I don't know, but there had to have been a funnier way to do this. Whatever. She was a decent character that I just wanted to see her develop even more. But whatever. Let's move on. And now we're up to Scott, the de facto antagonist of the season. Make no mistake, as an antagonist, he's nowhere near as good as Heather, Justin, Courtney, or Alejandro. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't warm up to him as the season progressed. Scott is a country boy that lives to be devious. But unlike Heather and Alejandro that came before him, he's not the smartest person in the room. I think what makes him work is ultimately the fact that he just isn't as smart as past antagonists. While I adore Heather and Alejandro and grew to love what they did with Justin, it is nice to have kind of a dumber, more comedic antagonist for a change. Although, I will admit, he only works because this cast is weak compared to the past one. If he were a part of the first generation cast, yeah, he'd be completely fucked. There's sort of a petty edge to Scott that I really like. It's nothing brilliant, but again, it's a nice shakeup. And they push it just hard enough for it to be cathartic as fuck when Scott finally gets ousted.
Sorry, pal. Better luck next life.
Oh, yeah, I should get to you, shouldn't I? This is Zoe, the self-proclaimed indie chick. Very outgoing, wants to make friends, but isn't most socially intelligent person out there. Besides all that, her big thing this season is having a major crush on Mike and not being able to figure out on her own that he has dissociative identity disorder. I mean, to be fair, I don't think I can really hold that against her too much, but it did get a little old after a while.
The guys back home are gorgeous, but they're all hockey thugs and juvie rejects with a collective IQ of 10.
Are you insinuating that athletes are stupid? So the other really big thing that comes with Zoe, besides her on and off again thing with Mike, well, actually, it has a lot to do with Mike. Let me explain. So after Mike is voted off, he gives Zoe something to remember him by, which just happens to be this medallion with his face on it. That's not narcissistic at all. But then during a later challenge, it gets broken, which causes Zoe to, well, kind of snap. Yeah.
All of a sudden, I don't know what's happening.
You know, I originally thought that this was going to be some kind of parallel to Mike's dissociative identity disorder. I mean, think about it. Zoe essentially takes on a new identity as a result of her snapping like this. Then again, it only lasts for an episode and a half, and then it's never mentioned again. Not even next season, so That was worth it, wasn't it? Thanks, guys. You know, maybe it's just me, but it feels like such a missed opportunity for character development and story.
Friendship finale? My butt!
Since you so kindly brought up your ass, what the fuck crawled up it? No, seriously, you were a douchebag to Cameron when he didn't do anything to deserve it. It's good that she reverses course, but like I said, it was only an episode and a half that she was like this, so what the hell was even the point? And then of course she gets voted off because Lightning wins the challenge and wins sole autonomy over who he can bring to the finale. And of course he chooses Cameron because he's a sniveling little twat. No, not Cameron. Lightning. Lightning's the sniveling twat.
I'm hurling Zoe.
What?
But Zoe's a more worthy opponent.
No! Really?
Welcome to Dumbass Boulevard. Population, you. And that brings us naturally to Lightning, who I think at the end of the day is my least favorite character from the second generation cast. And it's not even his over-competitiveness and his desire to put winning above everything else that bothers me. No, what really bothers me about Lightning is the fact that he's just so stupid. But it's not spun in a charming, likable way like it is with Lindsay. He's self-centered and arrogant and he thinks he's all of that, which could work, but it really doesn't here. I think one of the biggest reasons why it doesn't work is that for most of the season, Lightning wasn't the antagonist. He was just a dumbass that was there. Scott was the antagonist. Until he wasn't. Yeah, they did the same thing here that they did in Total Drama Action, where in the beginning of the season, Justin was the antagonist, and then Courtney filled that void when Justin was voted off. But it doesn't work as well here. Primarily, it's because Scott and Lightning are not as strong of characters as Justin and Courtney. But also not helping are the characters' respective motivations. Keep in mind that Courtney's path to becoming the antagonist of Season 2 got a start in Season 1, when Harold tampered with the votes that got her kicked off earlier than she should have been. Naturally, it would make sense for her to become pissed off and want to do whatever she could to win the million in Season 2. That's not here with Lightning. Yeah, at the end of it, his motivations really boil down to win the million because his father didn't raise a loser. Which, yeah, I'm not as invested in that. I will say I did like how just out of nowhere Lightning became this ultra menacing badass at the end of the series as he was going into the finale, where he basically scared the living shit out of Cameron. That was good. It doesn't really make up for his character's overall madness, though.
So this is what hot dogs feel like.
What does that even mean?
I should also point this stupid-ass thing out where we get to see Lightning's father in the finale, and he says he's bet his championship rings on Lightning winning the $1 million. I'm bringing this up here because it's never mentioned again in either ending. No matter who wins, it's never mentioned again. So what the hell was the point of even putting this in here?
What if Lightning doesn't win?
Impossible. I'll bet my championship rings on it.
What?
Hi, who the hell are you?
Because without these rings...
Oh wait, now I really want to analyze this! Why the hell was that scene in this story? It had nothing to do with the characters, it had nothing to do with the plot. Oh god, what am I doing? Just get this over with!
Yeah, we should wrap this up. And finally, we come to Cameron, a boy that has spent his entire life literally in a bubble because of his super overprotective mother. He is one of the best characters of this season. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the literal embodiment of...
I was born with glass bones and paper skin. Every morning I break my legs, and every afternoon I break my arms.
Is one of the best characters from this season. To be fair, that's more of an indictment of how terrible this cast is, but what are you gonna do? Look, I'm a sucker for wholesome content, and his friendship with Zoe and Mike was honestly really nice to see. He especially plays a big role for Mike because he finds out about Mike's disability and helps him both try to understand and control it and keep it a secret from Zoe. Of course, that last bit ends up blowing up in their face because he blows it anyway.
He's fighting his multiple personalities for control.
Multiple personalities?
Congratulations.
What is wrong with me?
I mean, I have a long list if you want me to read it. Also, I just love how Zoe immediately buys it from Cameron and doesn't just think that he's lying or something to cover for Mike. One thing I really appreciated about Cameron is he actually got better as a player as the season went along. Yeah, in the beginning, he was pretty much completely helpless. But gradually, he grows both as a person and as a competitor. At one point, he even pretty much fucks over Jo and betrays her to get her eliminated. And that was badass. Even she gives him props for that.
I learned from the best.
You know, you're right. Good technique, kid.
Cameron was definitely one of my favorite characters this season, and I was so happy to see him make it to the finals. And even win when I watched it, although the final challenge itself wasn't all that engaging. I get what they were going for with the brains versus brawn theme, but I liked the volcano one better from last season. Then again, that also might be because of the character dynamics. Heather and Alejandro played off each other a lot better than Cameron and Lightning played off each other. I suppose on that note I should segue into the game itself, but before I do, I want to bring up Chris and Chef briefly before we move on. I didn't like them this season all that much. It was pretty obvious from the get-go they were trying to make Chris a lot more sadistic as the show went on, and as a result he showed a lot less care for the contestants' well-beings. He literally sent them into a mine that he used to dump and store toxic waste, and thought that there would be no problem with it. And Chef, I don't know, he's not doing much for me this season. Maybe it's because he really wasn't as involved as he was in Total Drama Action and World Tour, but yeah, I didn't like him. So yeah, that's the cast for this season. While there are still some bright spots, and there isn't really a terrible character, not even Lightning, it is a significant overall downgrade from the first generation cast. And since the show lives and dies by its characters, that's not really a good thing. But now I suppose I should just get to the game itself. Firstly, as I mentioned earlier, we're back at Camp Wawanakwa. Only this time, it's completely infested with toxic waste. So, that's good. Another seemingly innocuous change to the season is how eliminations are handled.
In every episode, someone will be eliminated.
It's never been that hard before.
First off, that was a complete lie, because there was at least one episode where nobody was eliminated, and players simply swapped teams. So, good job, Chris.
You liar!
But more importantly, Zoe, yes it has. It has been that hard before. Namely, the first season. True, it wasn't literally every single episode, but there were only 2 episodes, not counting the post-finale special, where there was literally no elimination. The first was in the eating challenge that directly preceded the merge, where the remaining contestants were split into teams of boys versus girls, where the winning team got an all-expense-paid cruise. It was literally the first ever reward-only challenge in the series. The other non-elimination episode was this weird episode where the last 4 were cast ashore because of a freak rainstorm, and then they literally had to fend for themselves. I guess the non-elimination in that episode was the show's way of apologizing to the contestants.
I'm deeply sorry.
But yeah, that's literally the closest the show has ever come to having an elimination in every single episode of a season. Hell, it won't happen in either of the next 2 seasons either, both of which also have 13 episodes. The other really significant change to this season is the Chris McClane immunity statue. Yeah, it's like those immunity idols that Survivor has, where a contestant that finds it can use it as essentially a get-out-of-jail-free card. If they're about to be eliminated, they can use it to save their asses. Now, this is a change I actually like, but I feel like it would have been a lot more beneficial in the longer seasons, not a season that's half the length. But that's not what bugs me. No, what bugs me is this line.
But since you're all first-timers...
Stop the film. Stop the film.
Yeah. Chris, the Generation 1 cast were also first-timers, were they not? Like, I get it's common for a reality competition show to introduce changes to future casts that previous casts didn't have the benefit of. That's all fine and good. But most reality shows don't constantly reuse the same cast over and over and over again. This is literally your second unique cast in 4 seasons. What I'm trying to say is, why the hell are you using them being first-timers as justification for introducing this new rule when you could have done the same thing for the first generation cast? Hell, you could have introduced it in any of their subsequent seasons, but you didn't. Why? Once again, why was this written this way?
Explain yourself!
Another minor change to introduce was the power of soul autonomy. Twice this season, there were challenges where the winner of the challenge not only won immunity, but also won the only vote at elimination, which kind of makes immunity redundant when you really think about it, because they're not going to vote for themselves, are they? The first time this happened was when Scott used his power of autonomy to oust Mike, in the same episode where Zoe finally learns of Mike's disability. In that episode, Scott found out about Mike's secret and blackmailed him into helping him win the challenge, only to then backstab him later on. Gee, it's too bad Scott found the immunity idol earlier in the season. Mike could have really used that right about then. The other instance of this happening was in the penultimate episode, where Lightning wins the challenge and immunity, and chooses to axe Zoe instead of Cameron because he doesn't see Cameron as a threat and thinks it will be an easy win for him. Which is just lame.
Lame!
Like, yeah, technically Lightning had the power and the ability to do this, so he didn't technically do anything wrong, but aren't athletes typically known for wanting to go up against the best? Zoe is clearly a more worthy competitor than Cameron, something that Cameron himself even points out.
Zoe's a more worthy opponent!
Yep, that's why she's gone.
Dick move for certain, but hey, points for the honesty.
Fuck you.
The only other big thing I need to note about this season is that Chris finally goes to prison! Hey guys, my hashtag campaign worked!
You're busted, McLean.
For what?
Creating an environmental disaster, that's what.
So yeah, that pretty much sums up Revenge of the Island for you. There are still some enjoyable characters and some really enjoyable episodes and challenges, but there's no question that compared to World Tour, it's at least a few steps down in quality. The shortened episode order definitely doesn't help matters. It makes everything feel rushed, condensed, truncated. There isn't really enough time for us to get into this cast, into this new environment, and into the new gameplay twists. So sadly, it's over before you know it. And while this season certainly isn't up to snuff with what's come before, I still wanted more time with these people, to get to know them a little bit more. I really think I could have liked them a lot more as characters if we had the traditional 26 episodes. But we did not. And we won't again until we get to the Redonkulous race, but that's down the line. For now, this is the end of Season 4, which means now it's time to move on to the next entry, entitled
Total Drama All-Stars!
Widely considered to be one of the worst seasons of the entire franchise. And yeah, they're not wrong. Next time is going to hurt, I just know it.